Hello, Kieran.
Hi,
Thank you
Robert.
for thank you for being here. Happy to have you here on the podcast.
It's my pleasure.
Kieran, we spoke shortly about the whole situation in your life when you was a father, when you first time became father. Could you just shortly describe your situation and what happened?
Yeah, when I was very young, I was 19. We had a baby who died from an illness called Group B strep, and it was a bit of a shock. We weren't expecting to be pregnant, and then the loss was a shock. It really kind of affected my our relationship, affected my well-being tremendously. Um, and then we had subsequent babies. So within a couple of years, we were pregnant again, and the birth I found quite traumatic. I found that I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I was worried about the possibility of losing another baby, and that my behaviour then spiraled quite a lot. I would have more alcohol. I would avoid being at home. I would go round to my friends' houses more often and be at work more often or just be out of the house. Um, I was quite angry with people, not just my partner, but with everyone. But I knew that
Mhm.
it was unfounded. I knew I shouldn't be angry, so I just tried to avoid being with those people because I didn't want to kind of damage our relationship.
You mean your loved ones?
Yeah, loved ones mainly. Yeah, my partner, my parents. Yeah, it was a challenge, and I was probably like that for a couple of years. It was a lot of I want to say self-reflection, but it wasn't me reflecting. It was people like my dad and my uncle that called out my behavior a little bit. They told me that they could see this happening and what did I think about it. Really talked to me about what was happening, and that really helped me to see that there were things that I was avoiding thinking about that I really needed to reflect on and maybe talk about more. Uh, but yeah, it was a challenge for me, not just for me, for everyone involved. I felt that I should help everyone. That was my role, was to help everybody else. But I
Mm,
felt so bad that I just couldn't help other people, so I avoided them instead, and that made things worse.
okay. Avoiding my own family sounds difficult. And I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
So it must be a very difficult time losing a baby, especially that you are very young. How would you say, how was it for your family? So it was not only your family, but it's also your wife. How was it for your wife?
I don't like to talk about how it was for my wife because I wasn't available to listen to how she was, and I should have been. And it makes me feel bad that I wasn't more available.
Okay.
And so how I know that it had a tremendous negative impact on her and the family. And so I want to make sure that I don't say the wrong thing or put words in her mouth and describe it in a way that she wouldn't. But it was devastating for everyone. Um, my behaviors to avoid being around the family meant I was separated from that a little bit. And maybe that was a coping mechanism for me, but when I look back, it's a source of guilt, I think, for me. I probably should have done more to be available.
Yeah. I know this feeling of guilt. For me, I was feeling guilty because I couldn't manage everything.
Mm.
So I wanted to be there for everyone and I couldn't. Um, but what would you say there was the biggest sign that you were having some issues mentally? What was the biggest, the first sign?
Um, there was a lot, but it was definitely the change in behavior. The because I always spent a lot of time with my family, so I would never avoid them on purpose. Including my mum and dad, my brother, my partner. We spent a lot of time together, so avoiding them felt like the right thing to do.
Mhm.
at the time, but looking back, I know it definitely wasn't. And I think that was the first, when I realized that I was spending too much time away from them, that was when I realized that I needed to do something about it. And then after that, my dad and my uncle both sat with me and said, "You're drinking too much and
Mm,
you're not managing this well." And they talked to me and asked me questions about how I was, what I was feeling, and what I was doing. That that conversation was the point where I realized that I wasn't okay and I needed help.
mm. And on your own, did you realize something was wrong?
Um, I think deep down I probably knew, but I avoided thinking about it. I didn't think about whether there was something wrong. I just did what felt comfortable, which wasn't the right thing to do. But avoiding the thoughts of what I was doing wrong, or the guilt that I was feeling, or the fact
Mm,
that I wanted to help people and I couldn't do, on top of the grief and on top of the kind of the stress, that it just felt better to not think about it and ignore it. So without that conversation, I probably would never have acknowledged that I had a problem.
mm. I understand. You mentioned grief. Did you have time to grieve after your loss?
No, no, definitely not. I think I was still grieving 20 years after. Um, it's such a personal journey when you're grieving, and I don't think that I had the when I was younger, I didn't have the mental space to be able to do that on my own.
Yeah.
What I could do was lean on other people and get support from other people to manage and cope with the things that were going on. But I don't think I ever grieved personally. I was more focused on helping the other people to grieve in my family or my partner or that's what I wanted to do was help them to do it. Knowing that grieving is an important process, but not acknowledging that I needed to do that too, I think is probably fair for me to say.
Mhm. And right now, from the perspective, like it was for you 20 years ago, how do you see it right now? Do you know how to grieve? Is this
Yeah.
is this anything you can learn, or
Um,
how would you describe it?
you can learn. I think I heard somebody talk about it, about mental health as well as grieving in general, as like a toolbox. And so you have a box that you put all your tools in, and one day you've got to put a shelf up and you haven't got the right screwdriver. So you go and buy that screwdriver and put it in your box, and then it's there for when you need it in the future. With grieving or with mental health, you pick up those tools as you go. So at 19, I didn't have any of those tools in my box. It was empty and I didn't really know what to
Yeah.
do and I coped the way that I could. Whereas now I know that speaking to family is the first thing that I need to do if I'm struggling. I know that I can go for counselling or therapy and I can book in that through work or through my doctors or through the health services. I know that I should do that. I also know that exercise really helps me. So I'll make sure that I exercise regularly. And if I'm struggling, I'll make sure that I'll make a point to exercise more, even if I don't feel like it. I will do because I know it will help.
And
I
what
also
kind
know
of
that being out.
excuse me, what kind of exercise? What exactly do you
So for
mean?
me, I play football. I'm old now, so walking football is probably my level. I play a bit
Yeah.
of walking football, some five-a-side.
Mm,
And I quite like playing football. It gives me a bit of headspace and mindfulness, I think is the word that we would use often. But I also like just to be outside, so walking or hiking or camping, and anything physical. I've realized over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years that I quite like doing jobs in the house that are physical.
yeah.
Um, so I like to chop the wood. I like to do the DIY. I like to clean the car. Those kinds of physical things can help as well. So yeah, I've got a bit of an idea of what I'm doing. Sometimes if I'm struggling now, I'll say to my partner, I'm going out for a walk, and she'll say it's raining, and I'll be like, yeah, I think that's the best time for me to do it. I need to do it, so that works. So yeah, I think, and so over time I've built up this kind of resilience, I think, and
Mm.
the knowledge that I know what to do helps me to avoid having to do it. I think knowing that I'll be okay helps me to be okay in the first place.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense because for me it was I had this feeling that I'm different from anyone else on the planet, and it's not a good feeling, not at all. Um, did you have the same feeling?
Yeah, I think feeling isolated, um, knowing that other people had had similar experiences didn't help me to feel like there was other people out there to talk to. It just made me feel like their experiences couldn't be the same as mine
Yeah.
because they didn't act like I was acting, or they didn't feel like I was feeling. And it's only over time when you speak to people and family members might say something like, we've had a miscarriage, or things you don't know about people's private lives. We don't talk about these things in the open. You find that out over time, don't you? And I think feeling isolated was probably one of the biggest barriers to getting support.
Mm.
And like I said, when my dad and my uncle sat me down and had a conversation with me, they took away those barriers. They were interested in what I was saying and interested in how I was. And that made me think, well, maybe other people have had similar experiences. Um, and that, yeah, that absolutely really helped.
Yeah. I have the impression that there are some similar experiences, but nobody is in your skin. So it's never the same. And it's
Yeah,
also,
I think that's definitely the case. And I think the other thing that we don't do is we don't appreciate our own agency or our own ability to be well. We look at other people acting as though they're okay and
mm,
think that they're okay. We don't look at them and think, well, maybe they're struggling.
yeah,
And we don't appreciate that we are able to also make people think that we're okay, even when we're not. And I think for me, that realization meant that I could be a little bit more open and I could talk more
yeah.
about what was going on.
Did you have this kind of negative experience that you wanted to share with somebody and people aren't listening at all?
I don't think I had that. I think if I had shared, people would have listened. I
Mm,
think I was the other way where I didn't want to share the experiences. I wanted to avoid them, put them in a little bag and lock them away and not think about them. Um, and it was other people knowing that that's what I was doing and asking me about it that helped me to talk about it. I had people around me that wanted to talk, and I just don't think that I wanted to do that with them. So, yeah, it was probably the opposite for me.
mm. May I ask you about your like maybe your childhood, you know,
Yeah,
about your father, like this masculinity. For me, it was I am a man. I shouldn't, cry. I shouldn't be showing my emotions. I wasn't allowed to show my emotions. So basically, it was very difficult for me during this difficult period after the birth of our child to show my emotions or even find my emotions or to tell which one is it, to have the name, to have the language for the emotions.
yeah.
How is it in your case?
I think I was really lucky having the dad that I had. Um, he was a perfect blend, perfect mix of masculine and caring, thoughtful, and open and emotional.
Mm,
He was a prison officer.
mm,
He was a
okay.
football player. He was a butcher. He was a stoic, strong, muscular, physical man with all of those stereotypical traits that we associate with masculinity. The dad jokes, the attention, the organization. For me, the one thing that stands out for my dad was he helped people all the time. He would put
Mm,
himself out to go and help people as much as he could. But he also, within all of that masculinity, was very open about when he was struggling. He had post-traumatic stress disorder from his work, and he would talk about it with us. He would access therapy. He would be open
mm,
that that's what he was doing. He would talk about medication that he was on. He would tell us about that. But even before that, so that started when I was around 14 or 15. But even before that, if we were upset, there was no telling us to not be. He
mm,
would say,
yeah.
it's okay to be upset. We still need to do these things. but it's okay to sit now and be upset with it. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be
yeah,
sad. It's okay to be annoyed, frustrated, angry. You own all of those emotions, and then we decide what we're going to do with them. And that for me felt like a really good way to manage it. If I can tell you a story about my dad, just
please.
quickly. When we had our daughter, who she was a few weeks old, and my mum and dad came round, and the baby was crying, and I picked her up because she was crying. And my mum said to me, um, "You're making a rod for your own back," which might not translate well into German. Basically means that you're spoiling her, and the more you pick her up, the more she'll want to be picked up.
Mm,
And in the UK, people say that all the time. It's like a very old school way of parenting.
yeah.
Don't pick them up, let them cry. She needs to learn to soothe, all of those things. My mum said that to me, and then she walked out of the room, and my dad put his arm around me and said, "When you were a baby, I held you until you stopped crying, and I did it every time. So if you need to do that for your baby, you should do it."
Mm,
And that really underpins how I parent now. I am
yeah.
open to doing the things they need rather than doing the things that other people tell me that I should do. Anything that
Yeah.
feels okay is a good way to do it. But I think the poignant part of that story, as heartwarming as it is for my dad, he would not have said that to me in front of my mum. He was doing it like with my mum not knowing that that's how he would do it,
Yeah.
because he still felt that generation that mums are the natural parents who know what to do, and if
Mm,
mum says that, then that should be the way to do it. It just didn't feel right to him, so he didn't.
yeah.
And I look back and think, I wish I'd have told him that that was the right thing to do back then. I should have said something then. And now that I know all of that, now that I support other dads with that, like I know that that's the right thing to. I wish he would have known that too.
Yeah. But it's a amazing role model for you,
Yeah,
especially.
fantastic. It doesn't make everything easy. It helps to have. It's like those tools we mentioned. It's another tool in the toolbox. It's being able to look at somebody that represents the things that you want to be, and then do the same. But also, there's people that I would love, like my mum, who would not parent in that way, and I look at
Yeah.
that and think, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to choose something different. Um, and so yeah, role models are fantastic, but they can work both ways, can't they? They can motivate us,
Yeah.
or they can help us to see,
Demotivate.
there's a new way to do things. Yeah.
Yeah. May I ask you about, 1001 days after birth of your first daughter? So after the loss of your first child, then you stayed together as a family, and then you became father for the second time,
Well,
correct?
yes, kind of. It was much more complicated than that. Our relationship wasn't great. We did separate for a while.
Okay.
We did end up having another daughter, but we weren't together in that. We knew that
Okay.
that was going to happen. We were both happy for it to happen, but we weren't really planning a relationship for the future there. Um, and and when she was born, which is 26 years ago now,
Mm,
20 and a half years ago now, um, I found it really difficult. I found it a real challenge. I'm sure that her mum did as well. Um, and the first 1001 days for me, I felt like I should be doing more, and I wasn't or couldn't do any more. Partly because of my own emotions and the grief I was feeling, and now looking back, the postnatal depression that I was experiencing. Um, but I wanted to change it, and I didn't know how to change it. I needed somebody to help me to change the way that I felt about it in the situation I found myself in, and there just wasn't any kind of support for that. Um, the one thing that did change for me, and I've mentioned it a few times, was my dad and my uncle supporting me through that time and telling me what they expected of me as a dad. That
mm,
really helped to change the way that I acted. And I started to act with the baby's best interests at heart all the time. Not just when I was seeing the baby or when I was with them, but when I wasn't with them, I was thinking about them. I was changing the way that I was acting. So if friends were encouraging me to go out drinking, and I would say, no, I'm not doing that tonight. I'm saving money, or I'm buying something for the baby, or and they were at the forefront of my mind all the time. Um, Me and my partner did get back together a few years after that, so maybe 4 years after that, and we
Mm,
had another baby. So we did get together. We were married for a long time, together for 20 something years. We got divorced 5 years ago. We're very amicable. We get on really well. We've got a 26-year-old and a 19-year-old, and everything's fine. And the second pregnancy was very very different, and the second 1,001 days for my youngest was very different. I knew more about being a parent. I had more confidence in what I was doing. I was able to communicate with my partner.
mm,
All of that changed the way that I parented, and I felt far more successful. It doesn't mean it was easy. It just meant that I was able to cope with the things that weren't easy, I think.
mm. And may I ask, did you do some kind of therapy in between?
I Not really therapy. It was more peer support, I would say. I
Mm,
did have therapy, but I didn't approach it in the right way. I didn't approach therapy to help me to be a better parent. I approached it because I felt sad. And
okay.
it did help me to process the thoughts of being sad, being depressed. But now, in the UK particularly, there's lots of support that will help with the relationship with the baby as well as the sadness, the depression. And
Mm,
um, so the thing that helped me the most was people around me helping me to offload the struggles that I was having, to talk about the emotions that I was feeling. So therapy helped me to understand how to do that, but it was the people around me really and me feeling confident to reach out to them that really helped.
yeah, the combination is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
great example. But talking about emotions, mainly sadness. What about, like feeling guilty or
Mm.
shamed or some other
I,
emotions?
there
How
was
was it for you?
definitely guilty. I felt guilt often. Um, I didn't necessarily feel ashamed because I think what I was doing, I was avoiding the situation, thinking that they were better off if I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
So there was no shame for me because I felt that I was doing the right thing most of the time by
Yeah.
avoiding being the parent that I really should have been, or the partner that I should have been. So, but I definitely felt guilt at not being able to do the things I wanted to do. Um, I felt angry, and
At,
sometimes that was misplaced. I would feel angry at
at
the
yourself?
world, at God, at other people, services, um, but it was all misplaced. It was me that I was angry with. It was my behavior and my attitude that I really needed to change. And when I did that, I felt much calmer and much better. And when I talk about sadness, um, that's it's a really hard concept to explain because I wouldn't feel sad all the time.
Hmm.
It was very specifically about parenting. So if I was thinking about my daughter or thinking about me as a parent, I would feel immensely sad. But when I
Hmm.
was going out with my mates or drinking or playing football or watching football or being at uni and doing my studying or being at work, I didn't feel sad then. Like I could box it off and
Hmm.
compartmentalize to some extent where I didn't need to think about how sad I felt. And I think that what that did, it compounded the issue. It made it worse because avoiding felt better than feeling sad. And actually, what I needed to do was feel sad and understand why. And I didn't give myself time to do that when I should have done.
Although in your childhood you learned to be sad.
Yeah, I knew that being sad was okay.
Yeah.
I knew that, and so like I said, when I was thinking about being a parent, or I was thinking about the baby, I would feel sad, and I would be okay with feeling that in that moment.
Yeah.
But then I would avoid that, thinking about that to make myself sad by doing other things.
Hmm.
And that it took the realization that this is one of those times where um, avoidance is not the good thing that you think it is. Yes, I need to have exercise. Yes, I need to speak to people that around me that I know and that I love and that I respect. but I can't use that to avoid the feelings of sadness. And actually, those are the places to talk about those feelings because that's the safest place for me to go and say, I'm feeling really sad about this, and then have people listen and not have people fix it, just people listen to what I'm saying was the thing that really helped.
Yeah. For me, it was very difficult to talk about my emotions, especially negative emotions or thoughts regarding my wife taking care of two small children. So I didn't allow myself, you know, to be there to show my emotions because my wife, I had the impression I have to help my wife, you know, like the most important thing on the planet right now. The children are small. My wife is there breastfeeding them. So for me, the most important thing was to be there and to help my wife instead of thinking sometimes about myself.
Yeah.
Was it similar in your case?
Yeah, absolutely similar. I think a lot of dads feel that their role is as a protector, a provider, a supporter, and particularly during pregnancy, because everything that you're told during pregnancy is to support mum,
Yeah,
help mum's choices around feeding, help mum's progression through labour, all of that kind of stuff. But we're not taught. Nobody talks to dads about parenting. We're only taught to about supporting mums. And so when it comes to parenting, we kind of don't really know what to do. And so we just stay in that role of supporting mum, don't we? And it's not easy because mums don't need us to fix everything.
yeah,
And if we're not okay, then we really can't help mum to the best of our ability. So it's okay to want that to be the thing that you do, want to be that supporter and protector and provider. But you need to be okay to do that, and that's the bit I think we need education on. That's what I would have needed was, or what I got from eventually from my dad and my uncle was to, say, we know that you want to be there for your family. You need to talk about what's going on for you so that you can be there to the best of your ability.
yeah. How do you see it, parenting? Like, is it a clear direction in your parenting style? How do you see the role of a father for your daughters?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah, it's a very big question, but it's
Yeah.
also a question that, the question about responsibility, the question
Yeah.
about me leading two small human beings towards real life, adulthood, and preparing for everything. Like it was a burden for me, mental burden about knowing that my family itself, my family wasn't really supporting me as a child. I wasn't allowed to show my emotions, so my family was doing some kind of very very old style parenting,
Mm.
and I knew it was not okay, it was not um, good. And like parents, sometimes they just punished me physically, which is not okay right now.
Mm.
Today nobody is gonna punish the children physically. So I knew it's what I learned is not okay, and it's not the best option for me. And still I wanted to do the best job for my children. I wanted to be
Yeah.
the best father ever, like everyone wants to.
Yeah, of course. I think when I when I first became a dad, the expectation was that I would be the provider. I would
Mm,
protect them. I would discipline them to some extent. And that maybe I was the fun parent, the one that did the rough play or
mm,
played the practical jokes, or that's kind of the expectation. I think what I realized was as I started to parent and now looking back over the years, um, I wasn't showing them how to do it. I wasn't showing them how to be people. I was helping them find the people they already were. And I
mm,
think that's a really good way for me to look at it now is that, and in the work that I do with other dads, it's something that I try to help other dads to see. when babies are born, from the day that they're born, they're individual. They have their own personalities. They have things they like, things they don't like. They all might be completely different to me. Um, and my role as a parent is to guide them through learning who they are, and for me to learn who they are too, not to show them who I want them to be. That was a massive realization for me. And I
Mm.
think now my relationships with my daughters are um, excellent because we communicate. We're able to tell each other, if one of my daughters rings up and has a problem, I can say, "Do you want me to help you fix it, or do you want me to listen to you complain about it?" And it's okay. We can do both.
Yeah,
Uh,
it changes a lot. Yeah.
yeah, it changes a lot. Yeah, and so getting to know your baby, I think, is more important than getting your baby to do the things you think they should do.
Mm.
Because that's quite a lot of stress when they decide that they don't want to do the things you want to do. If they don't want to behave the way you think, there's
Yeah.
ways of managing that. There's ways of coping. There's ways of helping them to cope with it. And I think parenting it's not a straight road, is it? My two daughters are very different from each other.
Mm.
Um, One of them is very emotional. She's very
Mm.
keyed into kind of social justice. She's very outspoken about things that she disagrees with. My other daughter is quite nerdy. She likes a particular type of music and
Mm.
art. She loves animals. She's very laid back. She's very calm. She manages stress really, really well. Um, and I think that I've had influence on both of those different types of personalities in different
Yeah.
ways because I've helped them to understand who they are rather than trying to instill in them who they should be.
Hmm. And how did you learn it? Because for us as a family, as a parent, uh, as parents, there was at the beginning one big question. And the question is the baby going first? Like the whole idea of our parenting was the baby first. So we are going to do everything for the babies. And on the one hand, it meant I, like my identity, would go back for a few months period and we will just take care of our children. But on the other hand, we knew that it has to come back and we have to still invest a lot of time and a lot of energy to put the baby on the first place, which is very, very difficult. Like you said, taking the baby up and, hugging each time they wake up in the night is something very difficult. Like it's sleep deprivation is a very difficult topic. And, you know, like I've never heard about it before, being a parent myself. So not a lot of people, not a lot of books talk about it, like this kind of experience that you are becoming a different person. Or I had the impression a part of me is being aggressive to my children, but it wasn't me. It was not my identity. I knew it's some kind of part of me, but I wasn't identifying myself with this part.
Yeah.
And it's also very strange experience for me. How do you see it? This more investing at the beginning for the better future of our children. How do you see the whole
Yeah.
topic?
There's a real balance to find, isn't there? That there's an expectation that you will give up everything to be the parent that your baby needs. But over time, there's a realization that you need to be you to show them how they can be them.
Yeah,
And if you're not you, if you don't do the things that make you you, you're not then the parent that you should be.
yeah,
They need you to be you. And so I would encourage dads out there that are listening. Yes, baby comes first, and you've got to be able to do the things that baby needs, but you also need to be okay yourself. So the things that you do that make you okay, things like spending time with friends and family, hobbies that you might have, try and fit it in, but negotiate it with your partner so that they can also fit in those times where they feel more
yeah,
able to be themselves and do those things. And yes, the first few months might be front loaded, and you might have a lot more baby things to do when they're brand new. Um, but babies don't mind being carried. So if you want to go for a walk with your mates, get the baby in a carrier and go on a walk. If you need to do the housework, get the baby in a carrier and do some of the housework. There's ways of making it happen. It is negotiation. That's the key, is everything is negotiation. You've got to find the time, you've got to negotiate what it looks like, and you also have to be flexible enough in your own approach to change what you will accept as enough. Um, Before I had kids, I would play football 5 times a week.
Yeah.
When I had kids, that maybe went down to once a week. And that for me was a really good compromise because I was still getting to play football and I was still being the parent that I needed to be. So it was that balance and negotiation, I think.
Yeah. For me, it was particularly difficult to change from, going out for a drink to the change I'm going to the playground and
Yeah,
then seeing my friends.
yeah,
And it's at the beginning very difficult. And we have also in Germany, we have a strong culture of alcohol. Alcohol is everywhere, even if there is a meeting in the kindergarten, we still have some kind of alcohol for the parents there, which is kind of crazy and at the
yeah,
same time accepted by everyone. And this whole change is happening right now. So you are getting, a baby, then you are becoming father, and at the same time, everything should change, and it's not possible to do it within 1 second. And
yeah.
it was a big struggle for me even to allow myself this period of time to change.
It is a big transition, isn't it? And I don't know how much you know about hormones for men, but when you become a dad, your hormones change as well. So testosterone levels will drop, and vasopressin and prolactin are two different hormones. They go up, and they change your mood and how you feel and what you want to do, and they help you to be better attuned or be able to relate to the baby. All of those changes, along with having a new baby, having sleep deprivation, supporting your partner's well-being, looking after yourself, looking after siblings, all of those things are more and more and more pressure. And if you can imagine, if you don't do the things that release the pressure, um, then the pressure builds up until it can't go anywhere else, and that becomes a crisis. So it's important to think about it, but like you said, it's very difficult because we're not thinking about parenting during pregnancy. We're thinking about our partner during pregnancy. And when the baby arrives, everything changes really quickly. Like you said, it's a very quick transition from being an expectant dad to being a dad of a newborn is the biggest leap I think we'll ever make as men in our lives. It's the biggest change that we'll experience. So we can make sure that we prepare for that during pregnancy, that we talk to our partners and communicate the things that we need to do and to be okay. And we can also make sure that our partners also get that time and the space and the thoughtfulness from us that they also need to be able to do that too. Um, and I think that leads us then to thinking about the relationship with our partner and how we should prioritize that relationship because that's what keeps us both well, and we both need to be well for the baby. If we don't prioritize our relationship, we are not prioritizing the baby because we're not thinking about how we work together as a team, which is what babies need, what they expect, what they've evolved to come to experience. So, yeah, we need to have that in mind as well, I think.
It's a great message. Kieran, please allow me the last question. You are on the mission since a few years, I'd say. Tell us more about that matters in the UK.
Yeah, so in the UK we have a charity called Home Start. It works with in 175 different areas of the UK, all individual charities, and they support families who've got children under 5 with things like poverty, loneliness and isolation, sometimes things like breastfeeding support, um, befriending, those kinds of really important peer support. And Dad Matters is a service that we developed in Homestar in Manchester in the UK in 2017. And the aim of Dad Matters is we work with dads who have children under the age of 2. So they can be pregnant or expecting, but they'd have children under 2. And we support them with the relationship with the baby, with their mental health and their emotional well-being, and their partners and supporting their partners, and also accessing the right support and services that they might need. We do that by reaching out to the hospitals and the scans and the midwives where they're having the babies, and we speak to as many dads as we can there. In the last year, we've seen over 10,000 dads in those places and spoken to them all and asked them how they are, give them educational resources and leaflets and flyers, and talk to them about their baby. We also support professionals by delivering training on how to speak to dads, what dads want, what language to use, what resources they can signpost to help professionals to do that, like midwives,
Hmm?
health professionals, GPs, doctors, people like that. And then the third thing we do is one-to-one support for dads. So we speak to dads who a professional will refer a dad to us. They'll fill out a form. We'll contact the dad and we'll ask him how he's doing. We'll give him some advice. We'll support him. We'll meet up with him, maybe in the park, maybe in a coffee shop, maybe at home, and we'll really just be there for him, be a friend, be a support, somewhere for him to talk. And the stuff I got from my uncle and my dad when I needed it, that's what we want to provide through Dad Matters for those dads in those early years. And we see around 1,000 dads in that one-to-one support every year across our network. Currently, we're just expanding. We just released some funding recently to support the home starts that don't have dad matters to develop their own. So we're hoping to have another 10. We have 28 already, so that'll take us up to nearly 40 dad matters projects in the UK. Um, but then that was all. That was what we wanted to do. What we've realised since then is we're collecting so much evidence and data on dads that nobody else is collecting, we
Yeah.
can really influence people's decision making. We can influence policy. We can influence government. We can influence the funders and the commissioners. So we're providing evidence to places that need to see evidence of dads and their challenges, what they're going through, what helps them, that kind of thing. So that's like a really positive outcome we didn't expect to see.
It's great. It's great to see that in the UK there is so much um, existing, so much done for fathers,
Yeah.
and we would be happy to see the same in Germany. We will
There
put
are there are home starts in other countries. So Home
yeah.
Start Worldwide support home starts in other European countries or other worldwide countries actually. So I think there's one in Germany, there's Spain, France, Canada, South Africa. There's quite a lot. We're not at the point where we're able to share that yet into another country.
Mm.
But Home Starts might already be doing something similar. So if you have one in Germany, it might be worth looking for Home Start Germany and see if they what they have on offer.
We will put everything in the description.
Amazing.
Kieran, thank you so much for your time and for your experience sharing with us. Thank you so much.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.